Hey friends. So I had a wonderful day. I say a wonderful day, even though Annalise, my daughter, was sick, and so was my wife. Kind of. They both sat on the couch for most of the day and watched about 4 Christmas movies in a row. And I ran a few errands, had a little time to do some work from home, and listened to a good portion of The Gift by Lewis Hyde, which I've been very gladly revisiting. I've mentioned this before, but it's a book that my wife and I bonded over. She gave it to me when we were still pretty much just getting to know each other. We were just friends in theater school. And she showed me this book, and it was the perfect book for me to read. It's a book about gift giving and economies that are largely or wholly based on gift giving and gift cycles. And then it moves into a treatment of art. In the second half of the book, he treats art as a form of gift giving and looks at the dynamics that the ways in which the gift aspect of art affects art, how it can be altered or destroyed through the commodification of art. It's a super interesting book. And there are some aspects being discussed today in the portion I was reading, where he talks about, because there's a whole setup, and he in the first part of the book especially, there are just a number of examples of societies and or economies that are based on gift giving, and one of the features of gift giving is that gifts move in a circle. They move in a cycle. They don't ever stop. If they stop, they cease to be gifts, and generally the economies break down, and usually the social groups break down. So there's a kind of there's a cohesion, a social cohesion that is produced and sustained by cycles of gift giving. And it's really cool to see some of the dynamics and to see to see what that does to our perspective on the world, what it means to have ownership, or really that's kind of the wrong word, what it means to have stewardship of a gift in one of these economies. And there's a section in the part of the section that I was reading today. He talks about gifts that must be refused because gift giving or gift receiving creates a bond. That's the function of gifts. And there are times when that's not appropriate, right? Like, for example, defendant giving a gift to a judge, or politicians giving gifts to other politicians or to regulators, or we can imagine all kinds of thorny situations where gift and you generally there's laws in place to prevent that. But one of the ways he talks about this is that because gift giving is a way of affirming and strengthening social cohesion of varying units, right? This could be an entire community, it could be an entire tribe, it could be an entire village. Generally, there's a scale of community that sort of moves beyond gift giving. The gift cycle breaks down after a community reaches a certain size, and it's interesting to hear him talk about gift economies versus commodity economies. And it's not it's not that gift-giving economies are inherently superior to commodity economies. There's a fair amount of celebrating some of the underappreciated, certainly in this day and age, underappreciated aspects of what, especially, and the cyclicality and the kind of sense of communal flow that gift economies engender. That's something that's easy to just not have access to in our contemporary economy. Certainly the primary, what we think of as the economy of the country. Now, we all know that there are many microeconomies happening within that. A family has an economy. A neighborhood has an economy. A school has an economy. Right? Most likely, a small business would have an internal economy of some kind. It talks about science as being a place where, generally scientists are not paid to publish in some of the most prestigious scientific journals. So their work is considered a gift. And it's kind of treated that way. There's a status afforded people who publish really valuable new ideas. And when those ideas become commodified, if they happen to have a market application that allows them to be monetized, a lot of times the status of the work will fall in the eyes of the scientific community, even as the person, the individual scientist, might suddenly start seeing a lot more income from their work. So he just talks about this relationship between commodity economies and gift economies, and I found it really fascinating because one of the lenses he looks through is the economy of the family, and how when children are entering the phase of life where they are wanting to separate themselves from the family, where they're wanting to create their own identity, they do well to reject the gifts that come from the family, that are not necessarily intended to bind the child to the family, but that have that effect, whether they're intended that way or not. And again, this is a case of gifts that need to be rejected, right? Like they're gifts that would not help in that differentiation phase of life. We need to find a way to reject those gifts, or if we're not the individual who's making that kind of self-identity move, we need to have a way of understanding that. We need to. It's helpful, at least, to be able to understand what, because it can seem like ingratitude. It can seem like just a kind of irrational selfishness in a way when someone goes through that phase. And I certainly remember my own phase. It was like that, and I've witnessed some of these phases in my siblings, and it was really helpful to hear this kind of explication of it. I mean, honestly, it's kind of like so obvious when you look at it. It's like, oh right, duh. It's not stuff we don't know. It's just really interesting to examine it in a way that clarifies all the elements at play, because suddenly it's not so mysterious or random, the behavior that human beings exhibit in situations like that, which can kind of seem out of the blue or impulsive or irrational, but it's actually quite rational. It can actually, generally, it's usually tied to a very distinct and very necessary motive in terms of our psychological emotional evolution, but we might not be aware of it. It's a lot of intuition and a lot of just like what feels right, what feels wrong. That's generally where we're operating from. But it was just really cool to read about the dynamics and to kind of like see a clear picture of the forces that are at play, and then be able to kind of reflect on my own life and reflect on my experiences of other people I've been close enough to see, kind of what's going on. It's cool. I'm still, I don't know, maybe 2 hours into my Audible book, and I've got 10 hours left or something. It's a long book, but it's so cool. I can tell it's one that I'm going to finish and immediately start it over at the beginning, because it's relevant to my life on so many levels right now. And it feels interesting to be heading into Christmas time, reading The Gift, right? Going into the gift giving season, really kind of looking at what gifts are. Why do we do this? So many people are like fed up with the endless gifting that happens at Christmas time. Well, I think I would argue, and I suspect the author might argue, that they are gifts, but they're gifts that come from a commodity economy, and more we live by commodity economy rules, and we think according to commodity economy laws and precepts. So our gifts are kind of getting molded and I think in some ways distorted by that. So I want to keep reading. I think there's a lot left for me to internalize about that process, but I'm excited because I'm coming up on Christmas. I'm literally going gift shopping with like this book about gifts and gift giving and gift receiving, and just piping directly into my brain. Feels right somehow. Anyway, that's where I am today. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. Have a great day. I'll see you soon.